Welcome back to Craft and Cocktails. I'm your host, Chris Werner. Next up, we're going to throw a few questions at our guests, art directors Alana Billingsley and Kristen Merlino. Can you speak about a couple of mentors that took you under their wing or gave you some advice that has stuck with you?
Well, right. Well, I mean, after John and Joe.
I love how influential those two people were, specifically John Schaffner and Joe Stewart.
Yeah.
Who are business and life partners for those that don't know.
Yeah, I think that they touched a lot of people, in our generation and, those immediately surrounding us. They're just incredibly generous with their connections and their skill set, and they're always looking for opportunities, to reach out and keep people connected and help people find what they want to do. The next most, critical person, particularly in my development of my variety show career, was Brian Stonestreet. That's whose office I went to after I left John Schaffner's office at Warner Brothers, and I spent, the better part of a decade learning from Brian, learning, what it means to be an art director, and having the opportunity to support him as a production designer for a big chunk of his early career, taking on his own clients as the production designer. So I would say, I credit whatever I know about how to do this job. I really learned it in Brian's office.
I also spent the better part of a decade working closely with Steve Bass, who was another early mentor and a great, a great educator in professional conduct and all of the many ways to help navigate the uncertainty of the entertainment industry.
LimeLight Wired puts out a call to action to the followers for some questions that might be posed to folks like yourself. So there's a question here about how exactly you personally learn. How are you expanding your current skill set, whether or not it is in this particular area of time where we're locked down, or just in general? How are you getting better at your craft?
I think that it's, for me, there's a little bit of just regular maintenance, in the form of just simple things that become daily habits, like keeping up with the latest software. Once in a while, check out the tutorial that comes with the latest software, because sometimes, they do things that you weren't expecting. So, just trying to stay as a current part of the conversation about the software that you use.
Right, keeping in touch and close contact with other colleagues and looking at their work and having conversations about, how other people's processes are different, or how, they could be more similar. And a lot of it comes from talking to other close colleagues about what they are doing.
Not to say that it's like work to watch TV, but sometimes you'd rather not watch that specific thing. Maybe I'd rather watch Tiger King, but instead I'm going to make sure that, I watch the entire, all of the highlights of a live event, a live award show, or a music show, or a live musical or something, that my peers are working on, so that I can stay current in the conversation about what the industry is doing.
What are you reading? Who are you following? Where does inspiration come from?
I mean, I love, Instagram scrolling. I follow a lot of dancers. I feel like the kind of work that we do is always, specifically like live variety music specials. Theatrically speaking, I mean, if dancers just show up and start dancing, whatever it is you're feeling, I'm pretty sure that makes it better. So I follow a lot of them. I like to see what they're doing, and the lots of like dance competition shows. I think they are doing a similar thing to what we're doing, just on a faster, physically sometimes smaller stage, but they're putting out so much visual content, so much dynamic, like timed visual content to music. It's great fodder.
What might be a bucket list project? What are you waiting for a phone call to do?
I think an Olympic ceremony would be a bucket list project.
Yeah, I think we talk sometimes about when it comes to LA next.
Yeah, we talk about bucket list projects all the time.
That's one. It's right in line with like really high profile, really gigantic, and particularly with an Olympics, like the opening or closing ceremonies, any of those, just any kind of major international gathering, definitely right up our alley. Like, it includes a lot of the logistics, right? We like big logistics, and we like big impact, and that's one that would be on both of our lists.
Yeah.
So we are trying this thing where a guest whom we've spoken to in this interview series has asked a question of a future guest. They don't know who you are. They don't know what you do. So there is sometimes a question that is related to the industry, sometimes not. Your question comes from somebody you know. In this case, Dan Efros.
What do you do to recharge? What do you do when the creative batteries are out? What is that next step for you?
Oh yeah, I want to see if you want to take it first.
I recharge by just doing my best to turn it off. That sometimes that is not always successful, but sometimes that means getting out of town for a weekend or going somewhere else. But it is helpful, and it is important, especially in between projects, that if you can take a little bit of downtime and just not touch any projects for the course of a couple of days or a long weekend or something like that.
The kind of walls I often hit are problem-solving walls, like the logistics of, or the technical challenge of achieving the work is the thing I get bogged down in. So I find that I like to pick up my pencil again. I get tired of my computer often. Like that, I will find myself getting all knotted up over a frustration in the program, the frustration in like Vectorworks or SketchUp or something. Like I find that going back to basics and just doodling helps like release my flow, specifically with respect to like coming up with a fresh perspective on a problem that I'm facing at work.
Thank you so much for giving us a peek behind the curtains. To learn more about Paperweight's portfolio, check them out on Instagram. And for those of you that took time out of your day to watch and listen, thanks for being here. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to LimeLight Wired on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm your host, Chris Werner. Like the others, you can find me on Instagram. As for next week, here's what we've got in store.